This is Weirdly Enough, your regular podcast for strange stories and amazing facts, delivered straight to your favorite podcast directory and at weirdlyenough.com. Now, here are your hosts, Andy and Len.
Thank you very much for choosing Weirdly Enough. We are your one-stop podcast for everything weird. We cover a different topic every week, and today we're going to be looking at MK Ultra. Len's going to tell us all about MK Ultra. Remember, you can find us on Facebook, where just search for Weirdly Enough Podcast. We're also on Twitter, unless Elon's chucked us off. It's Weirdly Enough PC on there. So how's things today? You keeping well?
Never better.
Good. Yes. Good.
So we're going to take a wee, I wouldn't say a deep dive, but we're going to have a quick look at the sinister world of mind control.
MK Ultra revolves around LSD.
Yeah,
degree, doesn't it?
It's certainly an element of that, like, you know.
Listen to a great podcast at the minute from the BBC, or a great, maybe it's a radio series or something, but it's about LSD production in Wales.
Right.
It's okay. Rhys Evans narrates it. It's quite interesting. I think it'll bring in that guy. What was he called? Mr. Nice. The book about him and stuff. Yeah. So yeah, that's an interesting one to check out. But do carry on. I'm sorry.
That's still, yeah, it's quite a long history. Out of mind control. There's an article on the Vigilant Citizen website, and it reckons that this could actually go back to Egyptian times.
All right.
Because they talk about there's rituals that they used that apparently the secret societies of today, of the secret unknowns, would study, and they talk about methods of torture and intimidation.
And who are the secret unknowns?
It's them.
Them? Okay.
To create trauma, the use of potions, drugs, and casting of spells, which creates hypnotism, etc.
Yeah.
So yeah, it goes way back. Now the actual MK Ultra program was a real life operation that was actually run by the CIA in the sort of 1950s, 70s.
Okay.
And it used the assistance of a number of former Nazi scientists that were brought over after World War II. In Operation Paperclip.
They took over a lot of Nazi scientists, didn't they? Because the whole...
Yeah.
I was about to say the Manhattan Project, but no, it was later than that. But yes, they used a lot of Nazi scientists in different things.
What, like the moon landing?
Space, yeah.
Which may or may not have happened, but that's another story for another podcast. The MK Ultra program actually takes its name from the German phrase mind control, with a K-K-O-N-T-R-O-O... Sorry... O-L-L-A. Now, it was started by Alan Dulles, who was the CIA director in 1953 as a way to study mind control, just as the Cold War against the Russians was heating up. LSD was a big part of the experiments. But that's kind of quite scary stuff. In one case, a mental health patient in Kentucky was dosed with LSD continuously for 174 consecutive days.
Right.
So, like, every day.
A patient.
Yeah. And in total, the CIA conducted 149 separate mind control experiments, and they reckon as many as 25 involved unwitting subjects, so they didn't ask for their consent.
Yeah.
When it emerged that the CIA had been running these highly controversial experiments, the furore led to the official termination of the operation in August 1977, and it was alleged that most of the official records of the MK Ultra program had been destroyed. There's two examples of individuals that they think were maybe MK Ultra programmed assassins.
Alright, programmed assassins.
Yeah. One was Sirhan, who shot Robert Kennedy in 1968, and then Mark David Chapman, who shot John Lennon in 1980. There's an Irish author and researcher, Thomas Sheridan, who talked about this, and he went into the sort of deep history of the Nazis. And it was quite scary because a lot of this stuff happened in Canada. So they could take people up there and experiment, and it wasn't covered by the US Constitution.
Right.
So it was like a legal thing. And there's a guy called Ian Cameron, who's quite a sinister figure, who was a Canadian doctor that was involved in this. There's an example of a woman who was locked in a room, and they played a tape 24 hours a day while she was dosed on massive amounts of LSD. It was just, the tape just said, kill yourself, kill yourself, kill yourself, over and over for days.
Nice.
And what they discovered was when the human brain is put into this extreme trauma, disassociation happens. And what that basically means is a partition of the human brain is created where the trauma doesn't exist. And they go permanently into that in order to block out the trauma. So you retreat into your happy place,
Right, yeah.
to kind of hide from it. So they discovered that if they need the subject to do something like kill someone, for example, they could use that trigger word or phrase such as kill yourself, and it would throw them right back into that state of derangement that they were experiencing. So you could do that, and you could have anything as like a trigger word, like you just have like a colour.
Right.
So you could have like somebody walking into a room and just saying red, and then they go into their kind of altered state.
Trigger word, yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard of people training like security dogs and stuff, and having, and they use, I think it's Dutch words to order the dog to kill or attack someone. Is that's all like using the Dutch language.
Why do they use the Dutch language?
I think because if it was like kill in English,
Yeah.
and then somebody just said it randomly to the dog, all hell would break loose.
Interesting. That's interesting, yeah. There's a division of MK Ultra known as Monarch programming, and it deals specifically with trauma-based methods. It went operational on the 20th of April 1950.
What are trauma-based methods then?
Monarch appears to be the one that a lot of these celebrities are associated with. Okay. It's named after the monarch butterfly, which is very distinct orange colouring. And you often see when people talk about these, celebrities that are allegedly involved in mind control, they have a lot of kind of videos and imagery where like Monarch comes up.
Well, what celebrities are involved in mind control?
Loads of them.
Right, we'll get on to that later.
It's funny, you say when you look into this, so you start to see Monarch butterfly imagery coming up all the time.
Right.
And it actually is quite freaky.
Yeah.
Why a monarch butterfly? It sounds strange. One explanation for this is the dissociative mental states brought about by the programming cause a kind of metamorphosis similar to that of a larva turning into a butterfly in the chrysalis. There's a guy called Fritz Springmeier who did a lot of work on the sacred unknowns. He talked about this, and he says the concept is the monarch butterfly was one of the first scientific examples of how knowledge is passed from one generation to another. The monarch would pass on to the next generation directions for where to fly, and this would happen during a shift. This was very important for the programmers because they need the children of the program to disassociate, and they discovered the ability to become a multiple personality is something that's passed from one generation to another, which is why they have to keep this trauma-based mind control within dissociative bloodlines. And the Illuminati, or the sacred unknowns as I would call them, have been traumatizing their own kids for thousands of years. But in modern times, the program has been brought out to regular members of the population. Now, there's a guy, I think that's a bit esoteric to be honest, but there's one that I kind of prefer, an alternative, rather more sort of down-to-earth explanation from a guy called Ron Patton. He wrote a book specifically about Monarch programming called Project Monarch. And he said, now this gets a bit kind of gruesome, but one of the things they use when they're programming people is they shock them.
Right.
With electrics.
Shocks, yeah.
So like, as well, and so they're like dosing with LSD and messing up their sleep cycles and have strange kind of voices and kind of sinister things. And it's a bit like, do you ever see A Clockwork Orange?
Yes.
When they get the character Alex and they strap him down and they open up his eyes and it's like all the kind of disturbing imagery and stuff. It's that kind of idea. But when a person is undergoing trauma and just by electroshock, a feeling of lightheadedness is evidenced as if one is floating or fluttering like a butterfly. There's also a symbolic representation pertaining to the transformation or from a cocoon to a butterfly. So it's like, like the way you go from like the cocoon, you go from like the larvae, the cocoon, to the little butterfly. So it's like transformation, There's names that crop up. You're asking about celebrities. There's names that crop up quite a bit. One example is Lady Gaga. She has an alter, like an alternative personality that she goes into called Joe Calderone.
Right.
And she dresses in a suit and claims to be a male.
We talked about these alter egos a while back, didn't Rihanna or one of those singers?
A lot of them seem to do it actually. Now Lady Gaga,
something fierce.
Sasha Fierce.
Sasha
Yeah, I
Fierce.
mentioned her.
Was that Beyonce?
That's
Yeah.
Beyonce's one. She started her performance at the 2011 MTV Video Music Awards with a monologue in the character of Calderona.
Right.
Nicki Minaj is very known for it.
Yeah.
She'll slip in and out of multiple personalities in public, and she doesn't make any attempt to hide it.
Right.
During interviews, she often will start randomly speaking in a completely different accent, like halfway through the conversation.
Yeah.
And one of the favourite ones is the British girl.
Right. Okay.
And she suddenly starts speaking in like a posh London accent.
Yes.
Just like randomly out of the blue.
Right.
Minaj is also noticeable for regularly slipping into another identity she calls Roman Zelensky.
Sounds a bit like Roman Polanski there, doesn't it?
Very much so, yeah.
Right.
Now, Minaj says Zelensky is an orange-haired gay man.
Okay.
An interview with MTV before the release of her second album, Pink Friday, Roman Reloaded, Minaj warned the audience to get ready for the Roman Zelensky character. If you're not familiar with Roman, then you'll be familiar with him very soon. He's the boy that lives inside of me. He's a lunatic, and he's gay, and he'll be on the new album a lot. The Zelensky character is the inspiration for the song Roman's Revenge from Minaj's debut album Pink Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Another of her identities is Barbie doll, and she's often appeared depicting herself as a human doll with pink hair. Dolls in the colour pink are symbolic of monarch programming. She's often referred to as Barbie, and her female fans are known collectively as her Barbs.
Right, and her male fans are the Kens.
The Kens, yeah.
So, sorry, are these celebrities programming us, or have they been programmed themselves? I
suppose they've been programmed, but they're also kind of like programming us with their sort of their agenda. Or whatever,
right.
You know?
Okay.
You know, they're kind of
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's interesting anyway. Britney Spears. That's a famous one that you can look up on YouTube. 2003, she was interviewed by Diane Sawyer in Primetime TV, which I think it's an American channel. But Spears seems to switch personalities and interact with an unseen person off camera. And this is really abrupt, and this is the thing in all these things. It's always really abrupt and really out of the blue.
Yeah.
She turns quickly to the side and she says, "Oh, weird." And then followed by, "Hello, oh my goodness, hello, ooh, strong Brittany." I can't really do the accent, but you can say it on YouTube. It's really, really freaky, and it's like she's sort of distracted by something.
Yeah,
and she just switches into this persona, you know. She snaps back into her what they call the front altar, and then she suddenly becomes very tearful and overwhelmed.
Yeah.
There's a guy called Freeman, a researcher. He took a look at this bizarre interview on his freemantv.com site, and apparently there's an issue with a lot of these mind-controlled celebrities where whenever they hit 30, it starts to break down.
Right, okay.
Because, you know, maybe it's like to do with, you know, like people talk about when you're 25 to 30, it's that Saturn return thing, you know. Might be something to do with that.
Around about 27 or so.
Yeah.
Back to the 27 club again, yeah.
When the victims of mind control approach 30 years old, their brain attempts to break the amnesiac barriers and reintegrate itself. You know, bring the personalities together. Okay. You know, the altar and the front one. She famously, you'll remember this, she dyed her hair dark brown, and then she walked into a hair salon and demanded to have her head shaved.
Yes.
The owner told Brittany she would not shave her head, and Brittany took the shears out and did it herself. Now, have you ever heard of the Mothers of Darkness?
No, can't say I have.
I really want to do a wee thing in the future about the Mothers of Darkness on the podcast, because it's actually quite interesting. They're sort of some of the sacred unknowns. Right. Prominent ones in Europe, apparently. And they're involved in sort of it's this kind of castle they have in like Belgium or somewhere like that. I have to look it up. But there's a lady called Arizona Wilder who apparently was escaped from, you know, being sort of inducted into
the Mothers of Darkness.
From the Mothers of Darkness. And she told David Icke of her escape, and she said that she dyed her hair brown to be removed as the ritual goddess of the order, because it's always blonde, you see. Yeah. So she was trying to escape it, but that wasn't enough to keep her out of the rituals, so she shaved her head then.
See, David Icke has been banned from going to Schengen region countries.
Unreal. So we live in a totalitarian society, you see.
Yeah.
Spears also does the British girl, and Brittany even went so far as to record the hook to her #1 single, Scream and Shout, in the very same accent.
Okay.
And some researchers have suggested the song references the world of mind-controlled slaves. The refrain, "I'm gonna scream and shout and let it all out," is taken to be a reference to the mental anguish the victims experience, you know.
Yeah.
In 2014, viral footage emerged of Beyonce attending a sports event with Jay-Z, rocking from side to side and in a trance. I remember this. This was kind of a notorious one at the time. And she was seemingly oblivious to her surroundings.
Yeah.
And you mentioned about Sasha Fierce.
Yes, we're back to Sasha Fierce again.
And there's quite a good quote about Sasha Fierce here where she says, "I turn into Sasha. I wouldn't like Sasha if I met her off stage. She's too aggressive, too strong, too sassy.
Too sassy.
And too sexy." I'm not. He said it's funny when I say it in a really dry voice, like, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm not like her in real life at all. I'm not flirtatious and super confident and fearless like her. What I feel on stage, I don't feel anywhere else. It's an out-of-body experience. I created my stage persona so that when I go home, I don't have to think about what it is I do. Sasha isn't me. The people around me know who I really am. I think I can kind of see where it's just coming from. Because, I mean, I suppose if you wanted to be conspiratorial, you could say, oh, it's like, you know, MK Ultra alter ego. But then, I suppose you could sort of say it's kind of handy to have a stage persona.
Oh no, it's a bit Ziggy Stardust too.
Yeah, and it's like, because I mean, in a way, like, I mean, we have personas when we do this podcast.
Yeah.
This is just a version of you.
Yeah.
It's not the whole picture, if you know what I mean. You know, so I can say the appeal of that in a way, like, you know. There's one of my favourites. Did you ever hear about that guy Al Roker, who was a reporter for CNN? This is a really hilarious one.
Name anyway,
yeah, it was done almost like a comedy thing a few years ago, but now it kind of is a bit sinister in a way. In 2014, Al Roker, when it was some, I can't even remember what the interview was about, but his co-presenter said, "Leave room for the Holy Ghost," and then whenever Al Roker heard that, he froze in a trance state right in the middle of a TV link.
So maybe he's been MK Ultra'd.
And you can actually see that again on YouTube, and it's really freaky because he just suddenly goes like that there, you know. 2018, rapper I've seen this myself actually because I had a wee look at that at the weekend. Rapper Cardi B randomly staring into space in an award ceremony, again mid-interview.
Right.
Just sort of goes like, you know, zones out. And this happens. This is a regular thing for Katy Perry. You know, did you hear about Katy Perry's eye as well? There's something kind of really weird happened with her eye recently during a performance, where like some people thought it was actually maybe it almost like Bell's palsy or something like that.
Right.
Where like her eye, one of her eyelids just sort of came down, and she had to like physically prise it open again, but it kept falling down. It's really freaky. Yeah. Now it's come up in media quite a bit. There's frequent. It's like a frequent topic for kind of films and TV.
Yeah.
A classic one was the Manchurian. I always pronounce this wrong. I always call it the
Mancunian
candidate after,
Paradise,
which I think is possibly like a Paul Calf episode was called the Mancunian candidate. Yeah. Okay. So it's the Manchurian candidate, right? Not the Mancunian candidate.
Lawrence Harvey and Frank Sinatra.
There was a version made in the 2000s, but it's about rubbish. The original 62 one with Frank Sinatra is better. Where there's a US soldier, he returns from action in the Korean War. It turns out he was captured by the communists and taken to a facility in Manchuria. And along with all of our American POWs, he was programmed to become an assassin. Now he's triggered whenever he sees the Queen of Diamonds playing card.
Right.
So for him, it's like a visual image. It's not like a word.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, whenever somebody holds up the card to him, he goes into his assassin mentality. You know, Michael Caine, playing Harry Palmer, is subjected to MK Ultra style techniques in the Ipsos file. That's the one. Yeah. The Prisoner. If you ever watch that, it's a really good kind of cult 60s series, where an intelligent agent is imprisoned in a very bizarre village.
Port Marion.
That's the one, yeah. Where his captors practice mind control and psychological manipulation to keep him confused and frustrate his attempts to escape the village.
These weird balls that float along and stuff,
and if you watch that, there's a lot of weird imagery and kind of mind control and stuff about like triggers and stuff,
Right.
and people adopting like weird kind of older personalities and stuff, you know. So it's kind of a lot of interesting stuff going on. Have you ever heard this one? I fairly recommend to anybody. THX 1138, where Robert Duvall stars as this guy, THX guy. He's an inmate of an underground complex in the future,
Right.
and the inhabitants are controlled with mind-altering drugs and hollow broadcasts to kind of keep them in line. It's actually really interesting. It's a very interesting show. And as I mentioned before, Clockwork Orange. If you say the same with the infamous scene with it's the Ludovico technique, is called, to kind of reform prisoners.
Right.
And it's like the whole moral debate is, well, if you brainwash somebody into being good, does it really count? Because they're not like being good of their own free will. They're being kind of manipulated on that, like, you know. But that's like an infamous sign with the lid locks.
Oh yes.
I don't know if that's actually in the original book, because I know it's a big thing in the film. Now in that one, it's your man Malcolm McDowell, isn't it? Plays Alex, and he's subjected to a series of these kind of MK Ultra style techniques, but he's reduced to, he's basically a vegetable by the end of it. And it's very cruel, because they make him associate, because he loves Beethoven. He's obsessed with like the music of Beethoven, but he's subjected to like really horrific imagery whilst Beethoven is playing. So it becomes he associates Beethoven with horror. So it means that whenever he hears Beethoven, he freaks out and he's terrified. So it's kind of quite nasty that way, like, you know. Interestingly enough, the original book was by a guy called Anthony Burgess, who they think may have worked for MI5.
Right.
Which is interesting. So he might be a guy that maybe knows a wee bit about mind control. There's one I've never heard of here, but it looks quite interesting, because I like the old kind of gritty 70s kind of thrillers, and I like a bit of Charles Bronson as well. Telephone, which I've never heard of, but it sounds quite interesting, where the Soviet Union places a number of sleeper agents in deep cover, and that's an interesting I like the concept, like, in key positions all over America, and the Russian agents have undergone this style of brainwashing, and they remain totally unaware of their mission to undermine America. And they get triggered into action by hearing a code phrase from a poem, followed by their given name, delivered by a phone call. So somebody will ring them up from Moscow or whatever, and they'll read out this phrase from the poem, and then their name.
That's it.
So it'll be like, dun dun dun, Bob. And then they're like, oh, gotta go and do whatever they're doing. I didn't write it down here, but it's actually quite an interesting one about mentioning the assassination of John Lennon. Wasn't it The Catcher in the Rye was the book that Mark Chapman was found with?
Yes.
And he was carrying around The Catcher, and they reckon that might have been a trigger for him.
Right.
It was like certain phrases within the book, The Catcher in the Rye, like triggered Mark Chapman to kind of go into his mind control stuff.
Wow.
Have you ever seen Conspiracy Theory with Mel Gibson?
I'm not sure if I have. It was a 90s film, wasn't it?
You should check it out. It's interesting, like, you know, because he stars as this guy, taxi driver, who everyone perceives as being very paranoid.
Right.
But it's like that whole thing of just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not out to get you. Because lovely Patrick Stewart, he's not nice in this at all, kidnaps him and tortures him, and he reveals to Julia Roberts, this guy's lawyer, the existence of the MK Ultra program. And there's a quote here: MK Ultra was science sanctioned by the government, but it all ended the moment John Hinckley shot Ronald Reagan. That wasn't us, but the technology had been stolen. That's another weird one. If you ever hear the whole thing of John Hinckley and the Reagan attempted assassination, he had this weird obsession with like Jodie Foster.
Yes.
And the whole backstory was, you know, the more you look at it, the more kind of unbelievable it actually is. The whole thing was, I want to impress Jodie, because he was obsessed with Jodie Foster. And he wanted to impress her, so he was gonna like assassinate Reagan. Which really, even for kind of a crazy guy, really doesn't make much sense. So I'm kind of wondering, and this independent kind of thought that I came up with, was Jodie Foster, or like one of her films, was that kind of a trigger for that guy? You know, it's an interesting idea. Interesting. More modern one is Born Identity, where Matt Damon plays the asset of a black operation called Treadstone, And it's a weird one because it's the one where he's fished out of the sea at the start, and he's got like no memory of his previous life. Right. And there's interesting stuff about mind control about that. Do you remember Darren Brown when he was doing all his live TV experiments? Yes. There's this one where he did called The Assassin on Channel 4. It was part of a series of experiments, and it was purely about MK Ultra, and he actually used Saran as an example, and he hypnotised them out with the public and brainwashed them into shitting Stephen Fry. Right. Well, he didn't really shit him, but it was like, I remember at the time it was pretty...
fired blanks.
Yeah, fired blanks, yeah. The subject fires what he thinks is a loaded gun, but it's actually a replica at Fry as he's giving a public talk. And it's really kind of...
brainwashed.
Really kind of freaky. And it kind of disturbing as well. I mean, it was an interesting, because I remember that and been quite shocked by that. And kind of thinking, you'd need to kind of aftercare and stuff, because I mean, that could potentially could traumatise somebody. It's quite a heavy, kind of dark subject. And just to finish up, it's been done for the medium of interpretive dance.
Alright.
This is something I stumbled across purely by accident. 2017, the Rosie K Dance Company put on a show in Manchester which was inspired by the bizarre realm of pop culture conspiracies. The choreographer Rosie K used Adam Curtis, who's a very good documentary maker, and he did a documentary program that was kind of touched on this stuff called The Power of Nightmares, and he was using as a consultant. So I don't know, I'm not really sure how it would be done through the realm of interpretive dance, but
interesting,
I suppose.
Interesting. MK Ultra. That was a good deep dive into that. Do stay tuned. We've got our Weird Shorts coming up right next. Oh, well, I know Christmas is a time of year that you especially love, don't you? You're a big Christmas fan.
I'm all about Christmas. I wish it could be Christmas every day.
The holiday season is fast approaching. Don't you just love that phrase, the holiday season?
Happy holidays.
The thing I laugh at, and it comes from America, the word holiday season. It's the holidays. The holidays. But Americans get like one day off at Christmas. I used to watch things like National Lampoons and all. I used to think they were off like 6 weeks. I was thinking they had a big long holiday, but no. Anyway, Christmas is the season. It's the season not without accidents or problems. And that was definitely the case on the Tottenham Court Road in central London last week. 2 giant Christmas baubles. They're like big mirrored metallic orbs. You know what I mean? Big things. Yeah. People have smaller ones in their garden and they call them gazing balls.
Right.
Gazing balls. Anyway, the baubles couldn't withstand the heavy winds that the country had been experiencing and started rolling down this major thoroughfare on Halloween night, of all things. A video of the spectacle was captured by TikTok user The Shade Burra, who said, "Looks like these hashtag Christmas decorations couldn't withstand the heavy winds in central London last night." It's definitely a season for it. So if you do witness any Christmas decoration related madness, do email podcast@weirdlyenough.com. And I put this up on Facebook there the other day. NASA has captured a very odd looking image. Look at Vladimir Putin. He's one chap we never see cracking a grin. Have you ever seen him smiling?
Very serious look, yeah.
Anyway, another chap that rarely cracks a smile is the sun. You never see the sun smiling.
As in his son?
No, the sun.
Oh,
in the sky.
Yeah.
However, NASA have captured an image of the celestial body doing just that. The image shows what looks like 2 eyes and a mouth on the surface of the sun. And the space agency was quick to confirm, seen in ultraviolet light, these dark patches in the sun are known as coronal holes and are regions where fast solar winds gust out into space. The image was captured by NASA's Solar Dynamics Observatory, who mustn't have taken their mother's advice of staring at the sun, or not staring at the sun, maybe I should be saying, because they've been gawping at it since 2010. The observatory captures and monitors the surface of the sun's measuring magnetic field, energy output and atmosphere. Of course, Twitter was quick to respond, saying that the sun looked a lot like the face of Marshmallow Man from Ghostbusters.
I never liked Marshmallow Man.
No, he's annoying.
The way Green Shop was quite cute, but Marshmallow Man was just just properly sinister.
Yeah, I think so. Residents of a Cornish town, the Cornish town of Bodmin, were calling foul after DIY giants B&Q honoured the town by naming a toilet after the area. Adding insult to injury, the Bodmin close coupled toilet with standard closed seat is one of the cheapest loos on offer at B&Q, costing only £75. Bodmin was the former county town of Cornwall and is home to 16,500 people. It's the 7th biggest town in the county and the only settlement to have had an entry in the Domesday Book. The loo it doesn't fare as well as the town does when it comes to review. It only ranked up 8.3 stars on B&Q's website, whereas the town that it takes its name from had a score of an impressive 4.5 on TripAdvisor. One wonders why B&Q didn't name the bathroom range after some other Cornish towns they could have chosen from Flushing or Loo. There's a Loo in Cornwall.
Right.
No mention was made of the Beast of Bodmin.
I remember, do you remember that show Doc Martin?
Yes.
They had a phrase that they used to, I don't know if it's authentic or not, but whenever people went about crazy, they used to say, they're going Bodmin. I don't know if that was like an authentic phrase that was, or one that was just made up for the show, but Doc Martin would sort of go off in one.
And they'd say he's going Bodmin.
He's going Bodmin. He's going Bodmin. He's going Bodmin. That's quite good.
And finally, often people don't want the publicity when they receive a big lottery win. I know I wouldn't, but one man in China took a rather unusual step to stay anonymous. The man, named only as Lee, netted a cool £20.4 million after taxes and was photographed wearing a bizarre yellow costume that looks a bit like a giant chick. He told local reporters, "I'm really happy I won, but I don't want my family to know about it since they might become too arrogant and complacent in the future." He's already donated 600,000 to charity, so he's doing all right there, Lee.
It's not too bad.
I hope he gets on well. We'll be back again next week. We're looking at John Ronson. We're going to have a deep dive into the life and times of John Ronson. Do join us then. Thanks. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you then. Remember, subscribe to Weirdly Enough wherever you get your podcast. You can also find us on YouTube, or just ask your smart speaker to play Weirdly Enough podcast.
Thanks for listening to Weirdly Enough. Remember to subscribe to get the latest edition as soon as it drops. And don't forget to leave a review. Email us about anything we've discussed or with your own weird tale at podcast@weirdlyenough.com.